Well, good evening. I'm very sorry about this evening. It turns out that I made an Apple update earlier in the week, and when I did, it disabled the camera for Google and for Skype, and I didn't realize that because I haven't done Google Hangouts since our last meeting. So, anyway, I apologize about that. And I think that'll make class a little bit shorter tonight. I've prepared a very short fairly short video about the basics of blogging and HTML email communication. When we have class next week, I'll spend a little bit of time talking through and going into any of the analytics or talking about the back end. I think it's important to kind of see what I'm talking about there. But in general, I think you'll enjoy this. I tried to keep it pretty short, keep it on point, since we had a delay tonight. But the other thing I'd say is if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll be available to do a Google Hangout with groups, or I will make myself available if you want to discuss anything. You don't have to be together. We can do that with groups separated, so that's fine. And just let me know if you have any questions. Again, I apologize. Be aware that CC Chapman, the author of Content Rules, will be doing a Google Hangout with us next week. That is, if these cameras will continue to work. And I'll talk to you then. Thanks. Have a great week.
So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about blogging and sort of the basics of blogging. We've been spending some time within WordPress learning how to blog itself and put information in and kind of go from there. So there are a variety of blog engines out there, and basically what started out with Movable Type and a few of these very early blog platforms, they really focused on just producing content quickly and getting content out in a very easy to consume format. It's really taken a move more into content management systems where people build whole websites instead of just focus on blogging. But even taking a step back from that, I think it's really important to kind of understand why blogs are important. They've created a sphere that's much different than anything in the past, where you now have the ability to keep a news cycle alive much longer. In fact, there are several news cases where, because of blogging, information that otherwise flew under the radar has come back out and become news that's changed history. And Trent Lott actually lost his seat or resigned his seat because of some bloggers picking up some information that he had said at a fundraiser. And so blogging is pretty significant from the ecosystem, but I really wanted to just take some time and go through quickly what makes a blog great. As I've said before, blogging and email and the website are all sort of the foundational blocks. And so as you're thinking about your projects, this might be helpful. I think it's really important to have a great URL. I think it's important to have a name that you can own. Our class, digitalmarketingedu.com, it could be better, but it's not bad. It really captures what we're talking about: digital marketing, education, and just as a general rule, I do not like anything but .com. And obviously that limits the total capacity of what you could have. I mean, 800 numbers are sort of sparse now, but having that .com, I think, really helps. That's what people are programmed to look at. The other side of the argument is everybody Googles almost everything that they go to, so why does it really matter? So I can see either way, but I do think getting a great URL is really important. So I wanted to talk through just quickly what a general layout of a blog looks like. And you'll see this several times in the class because I'll talk about landing pages and what a wireframe looks like there. But here is what you call a wireframe. It's no design. It just kind of gives you the layout and the format where different elements of the page would sit. So at the top here you have the header. Typically you have the navigation. If you look at our digital marketing site, follows the same form, and then when you go into the blog post, very similar. You have a social share option, usually at the top over here on the left side, and then the post of the body of the page where the content goes. And down below that are some comments. Over on the right hand side is the sidebar, and that's usually where you have the ability to subscribe to somebody's email newsletter, have information about other blog posts, promotional information. It's very important to think about the sidebar and where that sits. Some people like it on the left, some people like it on the right. You just have to kind of see what works for you. But spending a lot of time stepping back from the actual design elements and looking at something that's scratched out on page can be very helpful to think about the way people use the site. Design matters. I'm not a, well, I appreciate great design. So you have this sort of design, which actually is readable. It's not pleasing, but it's readable. And then you have something that it's more designed. It's got a nice, clean look to it. And so as I was talking about earlier with the wireframe, you kind of see the header and the navigation are on the same bar. You have some general information. As I would say, I mean, while this is a really nice looking image up here and creates some white space for the copy, it's actually a pretty large waste of real estate there at the top. And so then you go into the body on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, like I was talking about with the sidebar, you've got the sign up and more information about them. So the header, I've talked about Deuce before. Deuce changes her header out on a regular basis, gives a little information, has some navigation there, but it's worth checking out Deuce.com and kind of seeing, from a design standpoint, I think she does a brilliant job. So navigation basics, what shows up there? Well, I mean, obviously you've got about, contact. Usually there's some way to connect socially. Search is often omitted, and I think it's very, very important because when you look at the analytics of sites and how people use their websites, I think that you find a lot of people come to a roadblock where they're not sure exactly where to go. And so search is very important and something that's easy to omit. Depending on the purpose of the site, you want to highlight, special features, and then if it's very sophisticated, put a sitemap on it. Here's the deal. When you're looking at your project, it's really important to take a step back from whatever's out there and think about what is the primary reason that somebody's coming into this website or blog, and it better be apparent in this navigation how to limit to 4 or 5 things that are the most important, or that are going to take them into sort of the micro sites within the site that are going to be important. So it's fine to have deeper pages, in my opinion. There used to be a 3-click rule. If you can't get to it in 3 clicks, then it shouldn't be on the website. Now I think sites are deeper. They're information rich. There's tons of content on there. So what's really important is to aggregate all of the similar content together. So in this case, if there's an events calendar, events needs its own tab, but you don't need all of the events on the home page. And so just thinking about that, I think of websites now as several different landing pages within one giant site. And what I mean by that is the landing page kind of stands on its own, has a lot of content. It goes deeper. And so anyway, think about that with the navigation. There's ways to subscribe. As you've seen, we've used MailChimp in our class, and so you can use that to send information out from just emails, and then like we are with the RSS feeds. You can also subscribe by RSS readers. It used to be much more, Google had something called Google Reader. It used to be much more ubiquitous than it is now because they closed that down in July, and so RSS readers have kind of gone back to the more techie people. Here's what's significant. What RSS means, really simple syndication, is it takes complex information and puts it into basically a database feed. And where that's really valuable is you can put information in a variety of different places. And that's very important when you're thinking about websites that are driven with a lot of news, rich information on it. They're often pulling RSS feeds in. But you can also use it to organize the mass of content that you read. So, obviously email's a big way, and there's also the RSS newsletter down here on Chris Brogan's site where you can see how to follow him. So I'm going to just kind of walk through the post. What do I think the critical elements are? I think it's most important to spend a ton of time on the headline. If you've ever read Duct Tape Marketing, they say to spend 75% of the time on the headline. Get it right, sweat it, make sure that it looks correct. I took it down to 30%, but then really spend some time writing easy to read information that's highly scannable using bullet points, and it's really short enough to read in 2 minutes. When you look at the analytics and look at the time that people spend on the website, you'll notice that people typically don't stay on any page longer than a minute and a half. So it's really important to put that together when you're thinking about it. If you put in anything that can be linked, link it. Now, you don't want to link to Wikipedia articles defining all the terms that you've used, but if you're referencing somebody else's blog post, it's really important to go ahead and put a link to it. It sends them a notification that you've linked, and it also helps both your search engine optimization and theirs. Lastly, I've got on here to think about keyword density. Keyword density is sort of a calculation to determine how many times a particular keyword shows up in a certain given amount of text. And so one of the things that you want to think about is if you're trying to optimize for bottled water, then you want a frequency of bottled water in the page, meaning you want that term to show up throughout the text several times. But if you overuse it, then you've sort of defeated the purpose, because Google will start to blacklist you. So it's a slippery slope. It needs to be there, but you don't want to kill it. Edit. I mean, it certainly makes the author look inexperienced. We'll say if there's grammatical errors, and if there's general errors throughout it, it leads to an overall distrust. So just spend some time there. And then think about the social strategy. How can you distribute the content that you've put on the blog post out to drive more traffic into it? I've linked to some information here as far as how to use photography. You can actually use free photography using Flickr, where you can go out and search for Creative Commons licensed imagery, and you can embed that on a blog, use it commercially, and you don't have to, all you have to do is attribute the author. And then, or you can buy royalty-free images. I think images really make a website look very professional. I think it's important when you're writing a post to try and get engagement. So ask questions to get people involved. Make sure that there's plenty of social sharing options there for them to share with their friends. And I've said this before, but I think it's really important. Write a lot of drafts when you're putting it together, a blog. Put a bunch of drafts out there. Keep 20, 25 drafts going at one time, and then you can go back and pick the ones when you're interested in writing about them. You may also think about a content calendar, which we talked about with the overall strategy doc, but it's a good idea to have an idea of where you're going. The last point here I think is really important. If you want to generate traffic on a blog, it's really important to participate in a community. If, for example, you're in a marketing blogging arena and you're picking out one fine niche within blogging to say, I'm really going to focus on amusement park marketing. That's going to be my target area. Then you want to associate with anybody else that's writing about amusement park marketing, whether that is bloggers, whether that's newspaper or journalists of any sort, really, whether that's trade or not, and interact with them and invite participation on your blog. It'll draw in some really great traffic with good comments. ProBlogger has a great article, 10 tips for writing a blog post. I'd recommend checking that out. You can just Google it. And generally, ProBlogger has some great articles, so it's definitely worth taking a look at. There's some different comment systems. I'm not going to drill deep into this. When we first started this semester, I used a different blog engine, and then I went back to just the basic WordPress. It's sort of the default. The reason I did that was because it emailed the author that somebody actually left them a comment. Some people you can just take and embed the Facebook comments on your site, or we started off using Disqus. I prefer Disqus. I think it's a great program. Disqus, whatever. So I think within comment, when you're picking an engine, you've got to take a look at a few things. How well does it work? Does it do a good job handling spam? If you've got posts out there, you may have noticed there's some spam coming in. Does the thread work? And what I mean by that is if somebody leaves a comment on there, can they follow what the follow-up posts are through email or some easy way? Is it easy to log in? If you create a barrier there, that's one thing that people really like about Facebook comments is because you can just show up on the site and leave a comment automatically. And then sort of moderation. If you can email approve or deny back to the comment engine, I think that makes it quick and easy. Drilling in the sidebar a little bit, there's a few things that you can put over there, as you can see here. But like I said, I think it's really important to put promotional items that are going to drive traffic into the blog. Once you get content on there, and this is all information to kind of help as you're building out a blog outside of this class. You can use sharing tools that make it very easy to share that content for viewers that come into the site to share on their own social networks. So Add This is one that offers a variety of different ways that you can share content. And then you can also use Share This, which is down on the lower right side there. Once a blog is done, this is a critical slide. Once a blog is done, there's some things that you need to do afterwards that really improve the exposure of the blog. There's a search engine called Technorati, and it focuses just on blogs. So you want to list, you can go in there and just create a free listing to the blog. You put it in a category, give some attributes and the authorship there, and it's a very simple profile to build, but that drives traffic in. It puts it into a feed system there and gets links to it. I would install an SEO plugin. What we have in WordPress right now is Yoast. It works very well to give some information about keywords and how to optimize that. Installing Google Webmaster Tools is really important. It gives you some information about how traffic's coming in, what keywords they're using, how that looks. Google Analytics, from day one you want to have Google Analytics on the site so you can track the usage of it. And then there's a few additional things. We covered the Woopra earlier in the semester, which just showed how the traffic is being used on the site. So RSS management. So how can you, this is going to just talk a little bit about ways to distribute your RSS feed. So FeedBlitz has become a very popular means for people to share their RSS feed. And basically what you do within WordPress, it just automatically builds an RSS feed. But there's no way to track how that's being used, whether people are actually subscribing to your feed or not. And so Google, I think the next slide down here is FeedBurner. Google has used FeedBurner for quite a while. But there's some suspicion that they're going to take that off, and so you get these other options like FeedBlitz and Feedity, and they give you some really good tracking mechanisms to see who's subscribing to your blog, whether they're reading the posts. I think within sharing, like I talked about with Add This and Share This, already went through that. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about HTML email, because this, I think, is really critical. When you get somebody on your website and they're giving you their attention, being able to take their information and get it from them gives you a valuable database of contacts that you can email out to. So, I think it's important to have some, visually appealing HTML email. That's one of the big benefits of it. It allows you to track the subscribers, like we talked about with MailChimp earlier in the semester, when I can see who opened it, how long they spent on the site, what clicks they had, an integration with the CRM. So sometimes if you have Salesforce.com, for example, you send an email blast out, you can go back and look at the user's profile and see how many emails they've opened and sort of get a track record on them. Then you have the schedule the email distribution. So you might write the email on a Monday afternoon and want to send it out Thursdays at 9 o'clock because that's when it gets opened most often. And I really think, and I think they actually say this in content rules, but blasts, the they send the wrong message, and depending on what you're trying to do, it may be counterproductive. So the more refined an approach that you have within HTML emails, the better. You don't want to send the same email to 50,000 people. It just your open rate's going to be lower, and the unsubscribe rate's going to go up. So you just want to make sure they get the right thing. I'm a huge fan of MailChimp. I think it's a fantastic platform. It's relatively simple to use. That being said, going into the world of HTML emails is a complicated world to get into in the first place. And so I spent a lot of time last semester trying to get people to use MailChimp. I've talked a little bit about this before, and it would prove to be quite difficult for the students. So be aware of it. If you're looking for an HTML email solution, I would strongly recommend taking a look at MailChimp. I think they're great. A lot of people absolutely love Aweber. Feel like it's a fantastic source of information, and it gives a very controlled distribution. MailChimp, you can build up a great list and put it out there. But if somebody unsubscribes, it's fairly detrimental. And MailChimp is very controlled about spamming, so they will suspend your account if you're spamming. I mean, Aweber's a little bit more flexible. Constant Contact's one of the first companies to enter the HTML email space. They're definitely worth a look. So when you're doing a campaign, you want to think just a little bit about the group that you're sending it to. It's sort of saying like a 50,000 person email. For example, you might subscribe to a retailer, and if you're a guy and you're looking for some shoes and they keep sending you women's dresses, for example, they are not doing a good job of segmenting their lists very well. So make sure that it's segmented to the appropriate audience. I think testing is so very important to know when people open, what's driving them. There's so much for the analytical mind. There's so much information that you can gather from MailChimp that can be very interesting. So test, and keep taking a look. And then I think one of the things that gets overwhelmed, and you're going to see this theme over and over again from me, but simplicity is key, and people don't read. And so you've got to keep the focus down to a single call to action. If you want somebody to do something on an email, you might intimate that you want action in the subject line. You don't have to come out and say, I want you to buy this right now. But if you'll notice some of the highly effective email subject lines, and even Apple does this with some of their products, they'll put the call to action right in the subject line, but keep it simple. If you want somebody to do something, don't try and tell them in a nuanced way. Make it very obvious. So I've already gone over the other slides about content marketing, but I think this gives a good synopsis of blogging.